Hello and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 119 with Appendage DP Powell Robinson. Enjoy!
Have you been watching anything cool recently?
What did I start? I've been enjoying Followed House of Usher. That's been
Oh, no shit. Okay, yeah. I've literally only seen billboards for it, so I don't even.
I like all of this stuff, but this one in particular, there's something, I don't know what they did photography wise to quite make it look the way they did, but I haven't seen anything quite like it.
Oh, geez, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, big fan.
Yeah, it's funny because like I was interviewing a couple people who couldn't work because of the writer's strike, and then so they were like watching tons of shit. And then I had a few people who were working in the UK that were like, I'm currently shooting something and want nothing to do with a screen.
That's usually how I am when I'm working, but yeah, it's been a little quiet.
Yeah. Has anything changed for you since the writer's strike ending, or has SAG pretty much created the exact same amount of work?
Yeah, the SAG halt. I mean, I what it means to me is like at least there will be a lot of stuff that has now been back into development and started writing again. So hopefully when the actors figure everything out, there'll be a lot of stuff to do. That's the hope.
Yeah. How are you occupying your time with all the breaks?
I work besides shooting. I also do a bit of producing and writing work, and so I've just been doing that. I have two shows that one I wrote, one that I'm just producing on, and so a lot of stuff to do for those, just helping get those off the ground.
Right on. Yeah, I saw that you which wouldn't necessarily be affected by the SAG strike, I don't think, but you shot whole grip of music videos.
Yeah, that's how I got into this whole thing was music videos. So I'm up to God knows how many now, but yeah, that was my beginning.
Yeah. Well, it was cool because how old are you?
30. How old am I? 31.
Yeah. Like, about this. I've done that. I'm 33 and I keep on going, fuck, really?
Yeah.
Like I thought it was 29.
Did we get here?
Yeah. So roughly the same age, but it felt like the same thing happened where like we all, tell me if this is you. You grow up watching like Spike Jonze music videos and skateboard films, Fight Club comes out, whatever. And you're like, this is all rad. The Matrix, I've talked about the Matrix a million times. And then everyone who could have theoretically been a mentor was like, well, music videos are where you're going to cut your teeth. And then we get here, no music videos. There was like 7 people. You must have been one of them that got all the music videos.
Yeah, it's when I left school, it was, I would say the market was probably a little bit bigger, but also there was more room because like TikTok has changed the whole like face of music video production. Now, like people don't want to pay for a full bunch of music videos, and they can pay for TikTok videos that get them more views. And so you've got a select number of big artists who are able to do actual music videos. And then, the sort of 5K to 15 or 30K music video range, I don't know if it even exists really as big as like that was how I came up, was like, I graduated in the 5 to 30 range was what everyone was doing for the first like 2 years out of school. And so
but all the ones that I got were 2 to 5.
Yeah.
It's always like someone has a buddy who's a musician, and then you're like, oh, but is the music good? It's good. All right, well then
we'll do it, I guess. Yeah.
He just needs you to. There was a lot of speaking as a producer, or you could probably speak to this as a producer. The importance of like micro producing for stuff like that. Like my friend's old roommate owns a bar that won't be open till 2, so we can shoot in there, kind of like stuff,
All the friend deals all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any interesting ones you can think of from the lower budget days where you had to pull off a few miracles?
Okay. Yeah. I did. Remember Fetty Wap? That's My Way. Yeah. So that was one of the earliest ones I did, and we obviously had no car rigs at the time. We didn't have like any sort of Russian or not the Ukraine arm for the.
No, it's just called Ukraine.
Yeah. So
there's no arm.
No. So instead, we got a pass van with suicide doors. Well, I had an easy rig on, and we ratchet strapped my easy rig to the passenger seats, and I just hung out the back of the van, and we filmed all the stuff with me just suspended by one ratchet strap or a bungee cord, just barreling down some side street. So,
that's OSHA approved.
Very, very much. Yeah, that's clearly a union job.
Yeah. The larger, I looked at your IMDb, I didn't write down a list, but like you are working with some of the largest. The one I remember, Jack White for What's the Trick? Great, which is a great track. But what do those higher budget music videos kind of look like production wise? Is it still the kind of same chaos? You just got a lot more going on, or is there a certain smoothness to it?
Some of them. A lot like the ones I've done for like Doja Cat or Youngblood or those like the big top tier pop star ones. Those are pretty much run and paid like commercials for the most part. There's still a scrappiness to them because music videos always like there's so many things between the artist and the label and like what everyone else wants. Like you're always adding stuff or changing things, and so you'll build a whole setup and the artist might show up and be like, I don't like it. You're like, okay. What's the video now? Like, I like that corner of the room over there. Let's shoot over there. And then you just have to pivot, just figure it out. Luckily, you have the gear and the people to pivot. Whereas on the smaller music videos, when it's pivoting, is you only had the money for one bank of lights, like one bit of set design, so you can't. So there is still a lot of improv, more so than in commercials. But, something like that Jack White, the What's the Trick one, very small budget. You'd think it was not. But, like, there's a weird thing going on where even big artists... just because of between all the split ad revenue, how many different people are making content now, and just like where stuff is being streamed, they aren't putting in as much as they used to. Like, whereas like a star of Jack White's size in like the 90s or the 80s might have done like $1 million music video. That was, I mean, who knows, but it was under 100K. It was like probably 50. Yeah. And so like, but you just, again, it's sort of what you were saying. You do it for the love of the song. And like, I would have, if they told me he wasn't paying, I've been a fan of Jack White since I would have just fucking flown out to Tennessee and done it myself anyway. Like,
right.
Sometimes you just have to do the ones that make you feel good, because a lot of the times you don't get to choose what you're working on, and things just come in. But yeah, 16 mil Jack White, that was an absolute no brainer. So
yeah, well, and it's something too about like, not that that's necessarily. I mean, it's low budget in the grand scheme of things, but like even lower budget stuff, I've always found that taking those gigs or taking gigs where you're just like, you know what, I like this person, I'll do them a favor. You end up meeting other people, like maybe let's say the production designer on What's the Trick, and they're like, oh yeah, I was the production designer on, the Avengers, whatever, and they're like, I just like this song, and then you end up. I think people flip; they think like every low budget film is a waste of time, and it's like you're going to end up meeting people who are also, coming down for the love of the project, and then they can kind of.
My gaffer of 7 years, I met on a job. Oh God, longer now. Woof. I met on a job. I did a favor for a producer friend. Like, hey, our dolly grip bailed, and this was like when I was really getting started. I was, I was shooting, but I was still doing a little bit of gaffing work and a little bit of just whatever to pick up money. And I need a dolly grip. And I dolly grip before. Like I left school basically just shooting and gaffing, but came out dolly grip for a day, and I met my gaffer, and I've been working with that guy ever since. So like that, it is true. Like, you never know, the smallest project, the weirdest opportunity, you will meet someone who can probably change your whole career.
Yeah, well, I was reading up on you, and it does seem like you still work with a lot of the people, including like Appendage and shit, that you met at USC.
Yeah.
And obviously all of us at the time wanted to go to UFC. Now, having done 120 something episodes of this podcast, I found that what we all should have wanted was going to AFI. But those people are just crushing it. But how important was SC, film school?
The best thing the SC Film School gave me was all the contacts I've got now. The person that I've written with and produced with now, we have a movie going off to Austin Film Festival that I'm going this week. He and I were freshman dorm neighbors. The guy who edited that lived down our dorm hall. He's one of our closest friends. The guy who directed it was his neighbor. So like we were all on one big dorm that like dorm floor. It was the film floor actually in the frattiest dorm of USC. Yeah, but so yeah, we just all we stayed friends that long. And say like Anna, I met in the intermediate film production class, and I just thought her work was awesome. And so when it came time to do our senior theses, we co-DP'd a thesis together, and that's how we met.
Oh, cool.
And really got to know each other's working style. And since then, I've shot, barring one thing where I had surgery and I couldn't do it, I shot basically everything else of hers, or I've been on set in some capacity for her since then. So that was, like 10 years ago. And then Alex Famillion, the editor and producer on Appendage, I went to high school with. We were in like film, they did a little film class at high school for us, which was cool. And yeah, we've known each other since then. So,
yeah, I was gonna say it was nearly the same thing for me. We had a arts dorm at went to Arizona State, and we're all still in touch for the most part. There's like, I'm from California, but like, about 12 of us moved back to LA, and like one of them's gotten pretty good at acting and is like in a bunch of television shows, and one's a producer now, and then my buddy Nick. Was always into documentary, just was nominated for his an Emmy for his doc last year. So it's like, it's weird how if even anyone can be someone.
Yeah.
These are all people at ASU that were just partying around, and then now success.
They say that it's like the first orientation day at the film school at USC, they say like, look at the person on your left and your right, like you might be working with them in 10 years now once you graduate. You never know who you're going to meet. I think that's one of the things I wish they kind of drilled home more the longer you went there, is like, I think you think when you're early on, like, well, if I just do really good work, like everyone will want to hire me, and like that's what matters. Just do really good work. It's like, no, you got to be someone that people want to work with, and that goes back all the way to who you meet in college. And if you're a dick, that can pay off 15 years later down the line when someone will hire you. And I'm sure, unfortunately, I will probably run into that at some point. We all do, but like, it's it's interesting just how people come back around to like, I don't know, people that I haven't seen in 12 years. Someone like, hey, I just started this new production company. Thought he that one thing you shot in school, and it was like, hey, we're doing that now. You want to come out and,
Yeah. I certainly had to do some image rehab coming out of college. Not a lot, but enough that it took a minute. But there is definitely one person that comes to mind from our film school that literally just blazed a trail through Hollywood. Like I would hear his name come up on random sets and like, fuck that guy. And I'm like, geez, you really can you can screw things up if you're, super full of yourself and think you're God's gift to filmmaking.
It's tough too, because when you're that young and you think the right way to do things, like you're like, oh, well, I've already shot 2 things and they're great. Like I know what I don't know. I think it's easier to be difficult a little bit when you're younger and you haven't had the experience of being humbled repeatedly. I think that's a very, very important post film school process, is getting kicked down to the fucking ground, learning your place a little bit once you left. But and end of the day, you find the people that you're the happiest working with, and usually those are the ones that you go the farthest with.
Well, and I think that actually brings up a great, getting kicked to the ground repeatedly. It's actually like this is going to sound weird. Let me try to think this through. It's like a comfortable place to be. Like, I don't think in film school that they give you enough time to realize you will not be shooting like, what is it? Tier 1, what's the high tier? Tier 3?
Yeah.
I don't know my fucking tiers.
The number, they ascend. Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff like off rip. You're going to be shooting, things that as a film student, you look down on, the joke always being like mayonnaise commercials or whatever. And then you end up having more fun on that than anything else because they're smaller, you're with your friends, whatever. And it's far more comfortable.
Yeah. First feature I did out of school, budget was like $70K, and you would think that would be a nightmare for everyone involved. And it was, but it was also the experience that I still talk with people the most. Like the crew that was on that, we're all still a lot of friends. Michelle, who PD'd Appendage, actually did a couple days of art direction on that one. And so again, it always comes back around, but people still reference that shoot as like, we were all living in the mountains together in a cabin, shooting like a slasher in the cabin we were living in. So there were times that it was, we're shooting a scene and there's people who are legitimately sleeping in the corner of the same room that the set was in as we were filming.
Yeah.
And just one of the craziest, some people were still in college while we were shooting it. It was wild, but yeah, the small ones can often be the most life-changing.
Yeah. Well, and then after that one, your next bigger one, you totally shot on an iPhone, right? Or a couple iPhones, right?
Yeah. Threshold. That was so Patrick, who I've now done 2 movies with, produced that new one with as well. We were waiting on money for a bigger film. We'd been commissioned to write a script, and they were like, yeah, it's gonna be $2 to $3 million. It'll be great. And it was just taking so long to get off the ground. We got to do something. We got to just occupy our brains somehow. So yeah, we did an 11-day improvised road trip horror movie, and it was very small crew. It was us two actors and our producer, and just we drove to like Utah and down to the border and back basically. And we just did it for us. Honestly, we thought it was like, well, we might as well let's do this weird experiment, have some fun to keep ourselves occupied. And then, I think because it was such an organic, fun process, the movie just came out actually pretty well, and sold it to Arrow. And
love Arrow.
Yeah, they did, man. We were so stoked. We could not believe we were getting a Blu-ray, like an Arrow Blu-ray release on an iPhone movie. That was one of the funniest career moments, I think. But yeah, cool.
Because Arrow's basically young hot Criterion at this point.
Yeah, for cult horror, exactly. Yeah, they're great.
Well, even they really expand. So I have a pretty.
You're right. They have expanded beyond that now.
Yeah, like I don't want to say that RoboCop was like the first one. That was certainly a big one. But yeah, I got a bunch of Arrow shit. Do you have a large physical media collection? That's been real newsy lately, and I certainly do.
I don't, but I also don't have a lot of stuff. I'm not.
The room suggests you should see this nonsense.
Yeah, no, I actually I have the same 5 black t-shirts and pairs of black jeans, and I just like the least amount of decision making possible. So
yeah.
I keep things simple and clutter free. My brain is already a mess, so helps me out. Yeah,
that's something that I have recently been thinking about, even just down to like clothes, but something that shout out to my friend Joey Famelli. He shoots with Adam Savage for his Tested YouTube channel. It's been going for like a decade. And one thing that Adam said once that has always stuck with me is like, and this goes down to more like when problems arise on set, but it still kind of applies to everything, is like, if something happens and it that you can't control, like it just hacks a decision off of it hacks a limb off your decision tree, which makes things easier. The less limbs you have on the decision tree, the easier your whole life is. So being cluttered, having too many options of things to wear, stuff to do, things to spend money on, places to go, it actually makes life worse in some ways.
I hear, the thing that blows my mind the most is like people talking about like my set outfits. Like, oh, I got to get my set outfits ready for the shoot. This the last thing on my mind is what I'm going to wear when I'm filming. I need that to be the last thing on my mind, because I'm trying to get my way through a shot list in my brain before I shoot. The last thing I want to be like, does this fucking match? Like, no, give me a basic outfit. I know it works. I don't have to think about it. Throw it on. I can use my brain for better things.
But yeah, I've got like a set pile. It's mostly just all of the free t-shirts I've gotten from like Matthews.
Hell yeah.
This one from fucking Frame.io, whatever. Like those are the gnarly ones.
Keep it simple. I think it's important.
Yeah. Speaking of simple, ooh, great. What a great segue I just came up with.
Trying to keep it simple. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously like for horror films, lighting can be sparse, but if you keep it sparse, you just don't get a good enough exposure. What are some ways that, because you've done a lot of horror, you got 3 big ones on you right now, with Appendage being a horror comedy. What are some of the ways that you're able to move quickly, be efficient, stay light, but still light in such a way that's dramatic and keeps the tone? Like, do you have any kind of not specific setups, but like styles that you lean on so far?
Sure. I would say that, well, yeah. So I make it a little more difficult on myself than maybe so. Like I typically don't like to use all these cameras have dual native sensitivity ISO settings.
Right.
You can do like 3200 ISO and shoot with like the back of your iPhone like reflecting off a mirror in a room that's like 10 feet away. Like I don't love that because I'm sure I will rely on it when I need to go on a super, super crazy fast moving set, but I haven't yet. I prefer to do the opposite. Something I talked about before about this movie was before I shot Appendage, I was doing a bunch of stuff on 16 and 35, like that Jack White video. And, fastest film without pushing the film, you're going to get is like a 500 ASA, stock. And so I just got used to lighting for 500. And so, when we did Appendage, like, I'm just going to, a lot of the movies that we were referencing were all shot on film. And to me, part of the look of those is not just that they were on film, but you had to light those movies to a certain level to actually get them to look like that. And so it's not like just when people shoot on film, like, well, now my movie's going to look like it was shot on film. Modern film stocks are so clean that, like, unless you push them or you actually expose them badly, you're not going to get as much grain as you think. And that was sort of one of the things that we also messed with on Appendage was there's very little film grain added to the movie later. But yeah, we did Appendage all at like 500, except for 2 or 3 days interiors where I got screwed by the weather. And like we just turned all the lights off, all the Jennies off, and we just had to be like, I guess, put up a tube. And so, I don't rely on that for speed. I know a lot of people do. I think it totally works. There's some gorgeous stuff that, like, obviously, like, look at The Creator, it was shot largely like 12,000 ISO. FX3, like, right. It's rad. And it totally works. I think the way that I just process lighting, I tend to like a significantly higher contrast ratio, and that's also gotten me into trouble a few times. But when you shoot at something like 500, unless you put a light somewhere, there's not going to be light on the face. You know what I mean? Like, it's really helpful for getting exactly the contrast you want because you're limiting everything around it. As far as how I actually do move fast in those situations, I don't do any real work anymore without making sure basically every light I've got is either blackout luminaire or on a DMX board. Obviously features like indie features like Appendage, can't afford a DMX board. But even like the iPad, even on the tiniest, like Appendage was, what's funny is everyone sees this on Hulu, but it was actually produced at an indie level. Like it was acquired, and picked up, but it wasn't like a Hulu original with like 12 or $15 million. This was, I won't say it, but it was significantly lower than that. It was produced as an indie. And so even at that level though, taking some hits on like maybe the number of lights I had available for lights that I knew I could control from an iPad so that like I wasn't futzing around with level and having to send someone out to dial the sky panel knob to like get things to, to be honest, actually we only use Vortex 8s, no sky panels. But
no, the Vortex 8s are better than the sky panels, in my opinion.
They are.
I've got a 4 right here.
For me, it's like I like sky panels when I got to do a big wash. Like if you're doing a big softbox overhead, it can be nice because they are slightly less. They have that less directional. I mean, you get to throw a diffusion panel in the Vortex 8, but like if you're not on a tight budget, the sky panels still work great for that. But I like the Vortexes because if you don't want it to be a wash, there's no way to get a direct beam from a sky panel. And so we did a lot of stuff with the windows and Appendage where it had to be, sometimes it was supposed to play as a street light, sometimes it was supposed to play as moonlight. And so we had basically outside every window at Hannah's, that was a real room. Like we had no set builds in this movie, which was tough for a whole other number.
Yeah.
Yes, did it. But like, yeah. So I tried to set it up like it was a stage setup as best I could. One light through every window so I could control even during the day, if I wanted extra punch through the windows, those vortexes really can kick if the sun's not hitting on the same side of the building. And so, we could slip in diffusion panels if it was moonlight, pull them out if it was street lights, take them out for daylight. And so that just gave us a lot of control, and I could, touch of a button, so like hit them all to daylight. Great, done. All right, easy. Whereas like if you had them all on a sky panel set up with no DMX board, no DMX cable running in, that's your whole lighting team out there just dialing everything to daylight, and that's the difference of maybe 15 minutes to 2. And so embrace the iPad, love the iPad, learn the iPad, know the lights that work well with it too, because there's some that don't. there's kind of, Astera's magic. We lit half of Appendage with the Lightsock 40, basically. A Lightsock 40 and a Astera tube in it. You'll see that in almost all of our BTS. There's just a tube sock right out of frame everywhere. And that thing is truly one of the most magical fast keys you could have when you're moving at our level, and you can't, I do a lot of bigger sets too, where the bigger music videos, I'll build full bar soft boxes. Like you have basically a U bar. I don't love overhead soft boxes. I don't love top-down lighting. I just never have. So I prefer to build either U's or what I call like an A-frame, and it's basically two diagonally tilted soft boxes instead of one flat overhead one, just because it means then I can sculpt that base ratio a little bit more instead of just, also helps wrap into the eyes. But, when you can't set up a full room and you can look anywhere and just turn on or off bars, it's really important that, to me at least, you have something that gives the feeling of kind of a big bar light, but it's very movable. And that's why I like those tube socks a lot, because it has that horizontal width, but it's very slim, and so you don't get like spill everywhere. That's the other thing, is just controlling. I think I'm a big tape duve on every wall I can when it's not on screen kind of person.
Yeah.
Which you can't always do on a movie this side. Like you said, to circle back to your moving fast topic, that's not always possible. And so the best next thing is ISO down and use like a very controllable soft key. Like that thing has the built-on skirt, so I can trim it as much as I need. And even if there's a little bit of spill at 500, it really knocks it off the walls and knocks it off the far side, and it's very controllable. So,
yeah, I mean,
long answer. Sorry for that, but
no. That I was literally about to say that was almost everything I've ever said. In my own thoughts, condensed and down to the fixtures and like style. I do like an overhead, but I use that more for, I guess everyone does use that more for ambient.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I've never thought of the TP situation. That's actually pretty simple.
It's a little tough because you have to make sure you have the weight bearing capacity to do it, because tilting a 20 by 12 softbox is fucking heavy, and it should be a chain motor thing. You can do it with ropes if you have enough talented grips, and it's totally possible, but it is a little more. That's not a easy, you can do it yourself kind of assembly. Like I only trust a really good grip team to rig that safely.
Yeah. I also didn't want to interrupt you because you were on a good roll, but I always make a point to mark off when we've mentioned the Astera tubes, because every single person, every DP has a set of Astera tubes. Sometimes it's one kit, sometimes it's more, but they always show up everywhere. They are like the most. Sky panels were a big deal when they came out, but I think the Astera tube has absolutely changed everyone's workflow in some way or another. It's like,
and then the Lightsock changed it again after that too. Like everyone was Asteras came out, and people were like, oh, these look good in shot, and they just started throwing Asteras into everything.
Right, the music video, the cheap music video move. They're all vertical.
Then that's when they were the AX1s, and they were only bright enough to be like in the shot, but not bright enough to really light the shot itself. And they came out with the Titans, and suddenly, like, oh, I can key with these now. Hell yeah! And then we just started people started wrapping them in what we called it snow. It's like a white kind of foam, or
right,
putting it in a pool noodle. And then Lightsock came out with the actual controllable diff and the skirt, and that I see those on TV sets. I see those all over the place. They're amazing.
Yeah. So for Appendage, like your key, so to speak, was your motivated light is coming through the windows with the vortexes, and then you just bring the tube with the sock on it for the actual key.
Wrap it around. Yeah. And there's a few things that the tube can't even do, or because it is a very soft light, often what'll happen is you lose some of the specular, like the harshness or the shininess that you get from a bare tube. And so what I started to do, especially in the ending scenes or some of the scenes when she's lying down and I had the room to do it, I would do a light sock that had more wrap to it. Like that was more of a key than anything. And then I would put a bare tube like 2 feet below it. And then turn that on to get skip. And so you got the soft key, and then you got a hard edge to like kind of motivate it to feel like it was wrapping around better. And so that became a little combo that I was using all over the place. Like if you watch the end of the movie when she's lying down and facing herself, spoilers, that whole scene is it's basically lit by that combo. There's like a light sock about 5 feet off the ground, and then there's another bare tube like 2 feet straight below. And that's why she's got that like crazy hard glint and like shimmer across her cheeks. And it kind of gave it more of a horror-y edge, because on its own, the light sock is so pretty and such a flattering light that it's not actually aggressive enough for horror movies sometimes. And so I've learned ways to either skinny it with the skirt to make it a thinner source so it's a little harsher, or double edge it with another tube to add the specularity that it's losing. And that combo seemed to work pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I had like three branches.
Yeah.
That was actually one thing I learned. I think I learned it from a photographer, actually. But one thing that really helped me when it came to making more realistic light was putting a hard source inside of a soft source. I think the photographer had a big umbrella, and they had one flash into the umbrella and one flash aimed
outwards. Yeah.
And then they would do that, and it just looks great, and you can use it for film, and especially if like the umbrella is a little cooler than the key, that kind of looks a lot more natural, because shadows are always cooler and shit. But yeah, that's a great idea with the 2 tubes.
Yeah, the other one I just remembered, as far as speedy setups, everyone loves practicals, but if you have all individual hand squeezers, it can be, again, kind of tedious to do. So that's why I always, if I have any practicals instead, I make sure I have like a kit of Nix bulbs, the Astera Nix bulbs as well, just because color control from those is just the best. It's like when you sometimes, you want a practical to play even warmer than you can get it from dimming it, and you dim it so low it's no longer playing. But you're like, oh, now it's the right orange. You can just, it's just so fast.
Have you used the Hydra panels?
Yeah, my LA gaffer, Nate Thompson, he's the one who introduced me to those as well. We put some diff on those, and we'll stick them under cameras to get like really nice highlights from those all the time. Or when we use them on a feature, actually did a second feature with Hulu and Worth & Brooks this year, and hopefully it comes out soon. But we had a lot of stuff with TVs and that, and it takes place in the 90s, and TVs then were square. And so if it was 4:3. And so we were realizing that in the eye lights, you could see that our like the Light Match 4 was a rectangle, and you could see that the tubes were tubes. Like, oh shit, that doesn't look like how a TV would look in their eyes at all. And so we started to either use four hydras stacked into a square, or we take a Light Match 4, we put Duve over half so it was a square, because the thing we realized was the quality from those hydras, when you stacked them, it looked very much like that CRT kind of harshness when it was undiffed, and just 4 of them in a row. So definitely, use those a bunch now.
They listened to this podcast. It was the craziest thing. I was wandering around like NAB, and this guy jumped out at me, and he was like, "Hey, I like your stuff." And I was like, "There's," no, this is a couple of years ago, and I was just like, "No, there's no way," because I write. I'm a DP, but no one's seen what I've shot. And I was like, maybe he's read my articles, but how would he know what my face looks like? So I was like, no. And he goes, yeah, you did this, that, and the other. I did when the AX1 tubes first came out, I did a poor man's process with them, basically. And I guess he saw that with Strangel down the road. And so I guess he's seen that, yada, yada, yada. The other day, they sent me a 4-pack of the Hydra panels. And so I've been trying to, I was like, has anyone else used these? Because since I've gotten them, I haven't gotten a gig where I can use them. But like using them as little mini keys, like places, has been nice. That little magnet on the back's pretty handy.
Yeah, no, they're super punchy. They're useful for very specific things. But yeah. Oh man, doing that, Titan's definitely changed poor man's processes. I've done that a lot with like 3 old Kino housings on the either side of cars. Like, so you have like 9 banks, and then you just put 4 tubes in each, and you can do perfect like light passes and chases. It's great.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the kind of getting deeper into the idea of just shooting everything at 500, which is also something I strongly believe in, because when people talk about how film looks better than digital, I often think that the color-wise, maybe, because obviously the colorist can make any camera look like anything, but like I can see an argument for that. But in my opinion, it all comes down to contrast. And back then you had to hit everything with a pretty hard light. Like getting soft light was a novelty when the Kinos first came out. And now everything is, bare tubes and 8-bank Chimera light, sky panels and stuff. And so I think to your point of shooting a lower ISO, plus you get cleaner shadows, shooting a lower ISO and using the more, let's say, traditional lighting style does make your stuff look more premium, I suppose, or filmic, quote unquote.
Yeah, I hate I did enough stuff. Again, like music videos, sometimes you have to just, I'm going to shoot 1600, 2000. Sure, why not? And like when you get into the grade, the amount that music videos get pushed in grades farther than features it's pretty drastic. And like if you don't have clean enough shadows, you'll start to get all that crazy colored noise when they try to introduce a heavier LUT. And I just don't like the look of pushed, LUTted, in camera color noise.
Right.
So that was the beginning of my, like, I'm just going to start ISOing down. Just going to bring it all down. But even if they want to throw a heavy grade on, it's still clean, and then we can control how much grain goes on their host. But
yeah,
everybody has a different process. That's how my brain works.
You had mentioned it earlier, but even like with the creator, I remember seeing the trailer before Oppenheimer. I was in the IMAX, like the 70 millimeter IMAX projector, and those shadows. This is the trailer. I haven't seen the movie yet, but the chroma noise was insane. And I was like, oh, okay. So when you see it on a big enough screen, you can see it. I'm sure on smaller screen, TV, whatever, not a big deal, but like it was aggressive. And so when all these articles came out, I would love to interview Oren about it.
He's rad. You definitely should. He's a cool guy, and yeah.
Get him on. And I had followed him on Instagram for years, and probably like Twitter or whatever for years. I've loved that guy's work. But it was, when all the Sony fanboys, I don't know if you're an online person, but boy, Sony's got a fan base.
Yeah, they
try not to.
I try not to. Yes, I try to stay off that as much as I can.
Yeah, it's brutal. But they're all like, look at it, we can do it. I'm like, I'm so glad you're motivated. Keep that motivation. But also, ILM touched a lot of this.
Yeah, what I think works for that is they're, because they were embracing the 75 mil Kawa thing, and like it had that aggressive vintage kind of vibe to some of the sci-fi. Like there was you look at some old film, there was a lot of chroma noise, honestly, in earlier film stocks. That it's definitely different. It's a different kind of noise. To me, with what Dave Cole, the colorist who worked on that and Dune and Batman, he's like one of the the best out there. I feel like the contrast curve and the sort of film push they did on it. I was worried. I used to own an FX3. I'm very aware of what the noise pattern looks like, and like I thought I was going to bug me, but the way that they kind of tweaked the image, it just felt like kind of the era. I think they were, to me, at least the era they were shooting for enough that like, yeah, if you analyze it, like I was able to see, because I'm a fucking dork and I owned the camera, like there's one scene like that's FX3 noise. But like if you don't know and you're just a 70s sci-fi fan or an 80s sci-fi fan, you might just be like, this just looks like exactly what my favorite movies used to look like. And that's, I think, the power of embracing some ILM magic, a really, knowing your color science and getting it to kind of line up and post it. You can do a lot of things now. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. That's what's been so hard. First of all, like I said, I haven't seen the movie, so I am just looking forward to seeing, because I am squarely in that camp of people who loves that type of film. Yeah, and you could barely string together a plot, and I'm fucking there for it, But I was trying to think of a few movies that counts, but I don't need to. Anyway, completely lost that thought. FX3 noise. Oh, but also it's just like, it makes it really hard to review cameras, because part of my job writing for ProVideo Coalition is reviewing gear, whatever, lights, cameras, stuff like that. And at this point, it's getting really difficult to receive a camera and not just sound like you're bitching, because every camera is amazing. So you end up trying to find the little things that aren't amazing, and then the whole article is just complaining.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But same thing, like only probably film nerds are gonna like technical film nerds are gonna look at any movie and be like, "Ooh, chroma noise." No, people don't know the word chroma noise. That's not
no. So it's really, you can get away with it just fine.
Yeah, I just I'm actually I have to return it technically. I'm hoping they will let me keep it for longer. But Fujifilm sent me the GFX 100 the second, they're calling it.
Ooh, yeah,
dude. So in terms of mirrorless cameras, this might be the best one.
Whoa, cool.
Like period. Autofocus is fast enough that it works. I just shot, like I said, I was shooting the race cars at Laguna Seca, kept up fine. 8-frame bursts, no problems. Got a buffer like crazy, so you can just ratchet off, like 40 raw images before it starts to freak out on you, or infinite JPEGs. But 8 stops of stabilization, 8K, ProRes, files, can do RAW if you go to like an Atomos or whatever. And it's 100 megapixel medium format still camera. So it's just it's got everything going for it. And then the Fujifilm color science, which is nice.
I got my XT5 somewhere on the shelf back there. Yeah,
oh yeah, I got that. I got the I actually just bought a while ago. I bought the GFX 50R.
Oh yeah.
Which, really like. I have a X100. Got a whole of them. XT3. I did read that you were kind of a similar to me, bit of a nerd growing up, where you were making your own gaming PCs and whatnot, which I also did. What was your game of choice?
Oh, good question. You know, I did a lot of MMO things. I loved RPGs, just story wise. I think one of my earliest memories gaming was actually not on PC. It was the Nintendo 64. It was Gauntlet Legends. It was
sure.
Yeah, the arcade adaptation. They turned into the N64 game, and like I played the shit out of that game. I loved it. Fantasy's always been a big thing for me, and so
sure,
loved that. But yeah, no, I mean, building PCs. I think once I started to get into like, you know, I guess Elder Scrolls with Morrowind. That was Xbox, I guess. Was there a PC version of Morrowind? I don't remember. That was a while.
There was, but Xbox was first, I believe.
Yeah. Jammed on that a lot too.
Yeah. The same thing. Like I was playing, as they came out, Final Fantasy 7 through 10, I think was my kind of era. 6, not really, but and then all the Nintendo 64 games. There's only like 15, so
yeah.
But when I was started getting into, there was like I grew up in a really small town, and this the library had this little like who wants to learn how to make films course. And looking back on it, they just grabbed like 2 guys from San Francisco who had just graduated college or maybe were in college to teach it. But I realized we were on Premiere like 7 or something, and I realized that I couldn't. No computer I had could run it. We were running the E-machines, whatever. And at the same time, I was really getting into Counter-Strike. And so I was convincing my parents that I needed the computer for Premiere. And I was like, it's just the same stuff. Like if I'm playing Counter-Strike, it's basically the same thing. So I was able to like start building a Counter-Strike rig, and we played semi-professionally.
Hell yeah. Nice.
Now, looking back on it, I should have stuck with that. Everyone making millions of dollars just hanging out.
It was, yeah. I'm glad that was the route, because I meet a lot of people now, and a lot of first ACs who tell me there's a lot of, other DPs who have their first ACs who like learning just the basics of the tech side of it, aside from just like what the gear is. Like, there's a large group of people that was their biggest learning curve, was just how the internal camera technology even worked. Not just like, how do you stick a Teradek on? How do you pull focus? Like it's, what is the computing inside the camera actually doing? What does it mean? And I think I'm pretty grateful to have the nerd backgrounds who have been willing to delve into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's certainly to your point about not going online. That's in the past like year, I've really started to decline on my interest in, like, even this is going to sound shitty to say, but like even trying to help people, because there'll be conversations on Reddit or whatever where someone will ask a question and you're like, oh yeah, actually same, if you lower your ISO, you actually get less shadow noise. And then here comes nerd PhD to give you a dissertation on why you're wrong. And you're like, I don't, whatever.
Like, I know when I do it and I see the shadows, I see they're cleaner. If you have a reason that you think it's wrong, like, sure, you do you. Yeah. I think that's why, like, people, there's so you get asked a lot of questions where it's hard to answer for everyone's experience sometimes. Just like, to everyone's eye, not even the word clean necessarily even means the same thing sometimes.
Right.
It's very tough to subjectively describe an image. I mean, there's some things that are inarguable about how an image looks, but to some people, clean to them is color separation and clarity rather than graininess or like that. There's so many different ways to talk about the way these things mean, that, especially when you're dealing with a lot of people online, the language can be a little difficult, and it's just not worth it. It's not worth arguing.
Well, the big one now that it feels like I've been beating my head against a wall is, and I got to have Jay Holben back on to just do, we had a lens month last season and everyone really liked it. And so, but Jay just came out with a new book of all of his Shotcraft articles from American Cinematographer. So we're going to use that as a launch pad to get him back on. But I want to have a segment where we just debunk the top 5 internet myths that keep popping up.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah.
So one of them, tell me if you can think of any after I name the first couple.
Sure.
What speed boosters do. I'm sick of hearing people say, "Oh, I got a speed booster, so my camera is now full frame." I'm like, please stop doing that.
No more words.
Yeah, none from you. Just the difference between full frame and Super 35, like legitimately. I think as much as I love Steve Yedlin, I think that level of specificity should have been locked behind a gate. Like you need to prove that you know what you're reading before you get to read those documents. You know what I'm talking about? Is like,
yeah. Oh, they are dense, and I really appreciate them, but they're very dense, and you can get lost in them. And you aren't like really doing this like every day and try. It's a lot.
Yeah. And again, I love when people get confidence, but when they get confidence and then want to shout other people down or whatever and use something that they don't fully understand to justify their ideas, it's just like, or people, jumping off the back of that one that I've seen a lot, people will be like, look at Steve Edlin, you can make any camera look like anything. So what I do is I just use a color space transform and resolve to turn my Sony into an Alexa. I'm like, oh God. Like,
I'm glad I stayed out of this. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, I like it at base level. Like, I guess technically you are doing what they said you're doing, but it's like, it's not, there's so many factors behind that like the sensor provides that you can't just fake with a color space transform.
Right.
But,
well, my argument was always, if that was true, we would all be doing that. If it was that easy to just like, that's not a secret you found.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like, the thing is, what they're not, what that argument doesn't work for me is like, yes, you could do it. And yes, you have now put your image into log C, Ari's color space. But what you don't have is the dynamic range of the Alexa baked into your image. And you don't have how it sort of interprets motion. You don't have how, there's so many different, like, even the way that Ari manufactures its pixels versus someone else, like the subdivisions on red versus like the bigger photo sites. Like there are so many little factors in this. Like you can't just smack into the same color space. Like, yeah, I can put my iPhone into Ari log C. It doesn't mean it looks like an Ari. It just means it's in the same color space. Like, there's so many. There's depth. There's layers. It's an onion. It's Shrek.
It's Shrek. Yeah, it's always Shrek. That you brought back out something I forgot to ask about the iPhones and your experience shooting an iPhone, because that's a piece, and also tied into online. A lot of times new people they go online, they ask, what should I do? And me and a bunch of other people like literally just grab some friends, write something and just shoot it on your phone. Don't invest any money in this. And then there's always this pushback of like, no, that you don't get it. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, if we had mini DV was a big ass problem. Like it was never easy. Like iPhone is easy, and cheap because you probably have one. But even I've never owned an iPhone. I shoot Android, and even the Android phones are really, really good. I have a Pixel, whatever. But what was your experience shooting that film on that system, and what kind of workarounds did you need to use and things you needed to consider to make sure it came out looking its best?
So this was, when we did it, there was the iPhone 8. So there was no cinematic mode. There was no built-in frame lock. There was no built-in wipeout. So we were using Filmic Pro to control it all. It was like a year after Unsane had come out when we shot the movie. And so we knew like, hey, they paid that work. We could probably, we could make that work. It was, a large part of it was also, because it was all improv initially, I was like being a fucking DP. I was like, well, we can use like a 5D. We can use something. I don't want to do an iPhone. I was like really not sold on the iPhone, and Patrick pitched it to me. I was like, let me find another option. And then we realized it was going to have to be almost all 2 camera the whole time. And he was going to have to operate one. He's a very good writer. He's a good director. has not really done cinematography work. And so asking him to suddenly focus his own 5D and like learn all the setting and all that in 3 weeks, it wasn't going to happen. And I wouldn't ask anyone to go through that and then be stressed and like whatever. And so, you know, I watched them saying, be good. And I checked, like, I guess we can do it. We're going to do an iPhone. Let's just go with the iPhone route. And so we did get a moment. I think the moment telephoto lenses had just come out. So
I love that lens. It looks cool.
We shot a lot of the moment telephoto lens. The chromatic aberration on the edges is fucking great.
Yep.
Yeah, adds some nice grit to the image. And like we used a lot of those. We had little handheld rigs. We had Zoom recorders strapped to the handheld rigs. Like, you know, just to try and get some audio. I mean, like half that movie's ADR, but it is what it is. I would
Hey man, all of Star Wars Episode 1 is ADR.
Look, yeah, and say it's worked for some people. So we did what we had to. I mean, another reason we went the iPhones was we were stealing all of it. Like we had no permits. Right. We were shooting in very public places and like restaurants and on the road and to everyone else, I think it looked like we were shooting like a travel log or a documentary or something. And you know, it let us get by, and that was because we didn't build out. Now there's like iPhone rigs, you know, like now there's stuff where you can like, and the same with the FX3, you can build that thing out to be like this fucking big. It's crazy. But we opted for nothing like that. We had little travel tripods. We had like 2 handheld rigs, and we just tried to be as low profile as possible. The main thing that helped us out to make that not look like absolute ass image wise was just Filmic Pro and then exposing for the highlights no matter the situation. Just like make sure the highlights are in, because the ugliest thing the iPhone does is blow out its highlights still, and like it can't handle the upper range very well. So we would just always expose to that, and we were like, it's an iPhone movie. It's a horror movie. If it's grainy, when we raise it up later, the horror movie, and it's going to be grainy. And we were actually pretty surprised at how well, I mean, the colorist was able to push the image. Like he dropped on a full, I think this was again before, you know, Filmbox and Dehancer were out, and like all these new film emulation software. So I think he had like an iPhone film convert plugin, and like surprisingly, like able to push the image around a fair amount. And there's some shots in that where like, because the sky was kept in, like when you soften the contrast and redo the actual curve on it later, we have very few blown out skies in that film, which is kind of surprising. But again, it was constantly paying attention to the actual like Filmic Pro, just had like always checking the exposure, always locking it. Like it would reset your white balance in between takes. It was a very early version of it. So being very aware of settings the whole time helped us out a lot. But
now Blackmagic's got their app, which apparently it's only for iPhone, but apparently it's way better than Filmic.
Really?
Like far more usable. Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever going to do an iPhone movie again, but I'm glad the software is better. Big thing we did with Threshold was we did a doc on how we shot the movie, because we knew like it was kind of the classic joke. It's everyone's like, well, everyone has a camera in their pocket. And I was like, go fuck yourself. Every time you hear that, you want to punch whoever says it. But to a certain extent, we did want to be able to say like, look, if you are desperate to make something, like genuinely you are waiting on money for a bigger project, you don't know how to break in, you don't know what you're doing, you technically can do it, and it'll be hard, and it won't be exactly how you want to make a movie, but it is doable, and it doesn't have to look like ass. Like, and this is how. And so we basically did an hour and a half making of Threshold, an hour and a half making of Doc. It's on like the Blu-ray and Arrow and all that, and it dives super deep into how we actually got away with it.
Now I'm gonna have to get that Arrow Blu-ray, because like I said, I got all these Criterion films, and then I started collecting Arrows, and I'm like, now I need a separate Arrow shelf, so I'll just get that.
Yeah.
But also that, like, I remember that was the one that a lot of people got mad at. Was David Fincher famously said that about iPads. He was like, write it on the iPad, email it to your friends from the iPad, shoot it on the iPad. You can edit it on the iPad. I don't know what you're mad about. And it did occur to me that when you and I were in our respective film schools, they kept saying, like, if you have a story to tell, then you'll succeed. And I think now, because stuff is so accessible, it has made people who are curious about film that don't really have a fully thought out idea or whatever, want to and think they can come out with something amazing like off rip. And I think that urgency of need, like anytime anyone asks, what camera should I get? I'm always like, what's your script? Like, well, I don't have one. I want to get into it. And I'm like, nope. Story comes first every time. Otherwise, you're going to be mad at yourself if you just have a camera and no story.
Well, that was the craziest part for us, is we thought like, oh, we're using these iPhones. They can do crazy shots of them. We can put them on the steering wheel. They can turn and it'll spin the camera. And we realized day one, like 20 minutes into shooting, we weren't going to do any of that shit. Like, the reason the movie was working even that early on was because the story was good. The actors were giving it everything. And we're like, okay, we're just going to shoot this traditionally. We're using iPhones, and it's just is what it is. We have one or two fun shots that you could, like, we stick it on a door and you open a door and the door swings open. Sure. But again, that's something that people could do with actual cameras too. You put a car mount on it, you can swing a door open and do that. It's just easier to duct tape an iPhone to a window. But like, we realized the gimmick and that part of it didn't make any sense, and it just came down to got to tell the story the right way.
Yeah, totally. There was something else I had written down, not to pause everything so I can. Oh, well, now there's two things. I did want to, speaking of. So one thing, this is another reason why I ask people if they've listened to it before they've been on, is I'm very bad at having I really feel like I've stuck the landing if all the questions had something to do with the thing before it. It very rarely happens. But going back to the music videos thing, I was wondering do you remember any moments that got you onto the next level of music video? Starting obviously super low budget, like what people were involved, what projects. And why do you to this day feel like you're still the person to call for all these really big pop artists? Or other artists, not all pop, but yeah.
Yeah, it's really strange. The music video career was always a fun thing that happened surprisingly alongside the narrative one. Because to be honest, the two styles of shooting are very different, and I've actually lost more than how I got to the next level. I think I probably can tell you how you won't. Is a lot of the stuff you shoot narratively, typically, or you should be, there's a lot of thought behind each frame, and the lighting fits the mood of the frame, and it fits what the character's feeling, and you're looking for meaning in everything you're shooting. You're not just trying to pop off. Like when everyone says just shoot it, that gives me a heart attack. When I hear just shoot it, I want to walk off the set, because that means that you've lost the thread of why we're all here. And sadly, you hear that a lot on music videos. Like, it's just a shot, just shoot it. It's like you just need a couple shots of the room, just shoot it. And surprisingly,
I love that one.
Yeah, especially early on when I was more difficult. I was trying to put too much into each frame. Like I immediately came out of college, did that feature, and did another one like the year after, and was just like in narrative land, at least one feature a year basically. And so I had to kind of learn how to turn that part of my brain off a little bit, where it was like, sometimes something can just look cool, and that's also fine, and like that's allowed, and the lighting doesn't need to come from somewhere. Like it can just be fun, and it can just be like, oh well, that it looks good because it needs to look good. And I would say early on, my inclinations were also, I liked making sad things when I was younger. I was very into bleak art.
Yeah, I guess we all did,
and I still do. I still think that like there is a lot, like one of the craziest feelings on set is when you got an actor who walks in the room and you can tell they're in it, and they're so committed, and the room gets quiet and no one says a word, and the sticks are quiet, and they call action very quietly, and it is like, don't fuck up, because this is a once in a lifetime thing to capture right now. They are so deep in it, you just got to do it. And that's still the best feeling to me, I think. And that's why maybe I can track my narrative career moving in a certain path, is just the stuff I've chosen to shoot, and who I've chosen to shoot with has lined up in kind of a nice way. Music videos, Wild West. There's no way to know. Like, I would say that my biggest breaks in music videos have not come after my biggest videos. But like, it's so bizarre, and like you'll never know what's going to be the one that takes off. A couple of years ago, there was a little song that was called "If the World Was Ending." It's the JP Sachs, Julia Michaels song. Wasn't a big song at the time. We did a music video for it. Very low budget music video, very simple. It was in 2 houses in the street connecting the houses up the block. We had no idea. It's like it's like 400 million views on YouTube now. Like one of my most viewed things. It's a huge song. And like a year later saw, a clip of my own cinematography, like in The Voice as they were playing it for like someone who was going to sing it on the show. It was fucking crazy, but we had no idea. Like that's the thing is sometimes you can tell, like, if it's for a big artist, like, oh, of course, a bajillion people are going to see this. Like, I did a Doja Cat video. I'm like, I got to nail this because there's so many people's eyes going to be on this already. What you don't know is when that's going to happen on accident or when that's going to happen because something goes viral. And that's why I hate the just shoot it attitude, because your just shoot it and your phoned in video might be the one that people see the most out of everything you've ever done. You're going to really be mad if you, I think also as a director or a DP, phone some shit in. And then suddenly you're like, this is what you're known for, is you're known for phoning some shit in. And I hate that. And so I try and approach everything now. I won't take on something if I don't want to put, like, music videos. I gotta want to bring everything I bring to a narrative to the music video. Even if on set, I'm chill about the, like, you don't need to tell me what she's feeling in this. And like, right. The artistic intent behind everything. I mean, you gotta at least be willing to bring some of you to it. And if you're doing stuff where you don't give a crap, like, hope you're getting paid well for it. It's because otherwise, it hurts. It really does wear down on you after 3 or 4 years of shooting stuff that you don't feel and don't care about. Like, it sucks. And so, I try and find, like, I did this, I did a music video for Youngblood with Chris Breslauer, who I work with a fair amount. And we've done a lot of my big favorite videos we've done together. And that one was just such a cool experience because, he knows me, he knows how I like to shoot. Now I think you'd rock just shooting a punk show. No, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to make a punk show. We're going to get a warehouse. It's a dead empty warehouse. When you watch the video, it looks like it's meant for that kind of thing, but no lights in there. There was nothing in there. There's no stage. It was like straight up. And, we just got to build an underground punk scene for that one. And like, that was, that's the kind of music video I can get behind, where it's like, build a world, make it like really distinct, and like, let's just shoot around in that world. I think that might be the best answer for you, is like, just make sure you even if it's a video you don't understand or you don't know why you're shooting it, put some of you into it, because if you don't, you're not gonna want to talk about it after.
Well, and I've certainly done that before, where like the pay sucks, maybe the people aren't your favorite, whatever, and you're kind of like, especially like the motivations thing. You're like, no one's caring about the motivations. And then, well, that just reminded me of something else. And then it hits, and then you have this feeling of wanting to take it away from people's faces and go, no, wait, I just need to polish that up. And it's like, no, it's too late. Like, I freelance color a lot, and even then I have to like sometimes take a couple days away just to come back, because I'm like sick of it, and I'm like, it looks good enough. Like, why are you complaining? And then just go, all right, no, they want it to look different. I'm gonna make sure it looks different and good, not just different for different sake. Because otherwise, it ends up in front of someone who's like, oh, who's the colors? Who's the DP? And you're like, oh, that's not my best,
Yeah, and you can't always help that. And that's kind of why I dig, I was doing these music videos for a long time, but moving into commercials more so recently in narrative, there is a soulless quality occasionally to commercial work, or there can be, but what is there is intent. No matter what, even the worst commercial you'd be on, you're like, man, why am I filming a napkin commercial? Like, what is but
right.
At least then it's all boarded, and like, everyone at least put thought into why you're doing it. And even if you don't like the thought, it's nice to know there is thought. Yeah. And that's one of the things I do really appreciate working with someone like Chris. Like, he sends me videos, and it's frame by frame. He's already animatic the whole music video before, like, to the time code, and the video that comes out is exactly that. Like, I know that he's not going to look at something, just film it. It's fine. Like, he's someone who also cares kind of the same about. And it's why Anna and I get along really well. We know Anna and I shot so many things together, and I've known her since so early on, and she's known me since so early on in college. We definitely have a bit of a hive mind thing that happens where we're on set. Like, she's very prepped. You know, don't get me wrong. There are shot lists, there are storyboards. We have reference frames that we shoot on like Kadrage or Artemis to match the storyboards, and it's all there. But when it comes down to it, if there's a moment where it's like, scene doesn't feel right, what are we missing? We're missing this close-up. I need this kind of close-up, and I won't even have to ask. I'll be like, you want this lens, right? You want me to be on this side of it? You want exact this? She's like, yeah, this is great. It is like, we just know, I know her taste, she knows my taste, and we just, you know, there's never a phone-in situation with her because she cares a lot, and luckily we don't have to over-communicate too much to get there.
Yeah. Was there anything, you know, every project you end up learning something, especially, you know, like we've been saying, but was there anything on Appendage that you came off the other side going like, oh, that's something I got to think about for the future, or maybe a trick or something that you picked up off it?
Yeah, I actually wrote a list. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but as we went, I had an ongoing list of questions to ask on my next feature, and me and my first AC would add to this note daily, and it was just things that we missed on the prep board, things that like, do I have it close? Because there's some.
I was going to say, you got to email me this list because I'm just interested for my own work.
Let me see.
I don't have to publish it.
Questions for features. There we go. Yeah, I mean, stuff where even down to the nitty gritty, where like we were getting nickel and dime by some of these rental houses, and the budget on that were like getting so specific as to ask, do you have budget for carts beyond like rental? Do you have money for extra carts if we need it? Because we were shooting in places where there were no elevators, and there was no easy access walkways, and if they asked us to huff every box up individually, we would have died. You know, things like making sure you have paid color supervision on a smaller movie that's not often there. Got to check for that. I think even if it's a week, even if you have to do 1 week unpaid, 1 week paid, still good. Making sure that you have it in there that you are consulted on the colorist, because there's a lot of people, a lot of producers, a lot of people who will just be like, oh, I got this guy, and it's like their cousin.
Right.
And you're like, have you graded anything ever? And you know, on some people, popular opinion, some people unpopular opinion, I think the colorist is up to it's like 50% of the cinematography process.
Nope, that is a very popular opinion on this podcast.
Yeah, there is. I think you can't obviously have a colorist fix just bad work, objectively bad work, but you can have a colorist ruin good work very easily, and you can have a colorist misinterpret. I think worse than that, misinterpret what the movie is. That is the biggest problem I think you see, where especially with all these online color courses now, and people just learning how to make things look so punchy and so polished and so over-colored and so overproduced. You have an army of independent colorists who maybe before they've done features are going to push a narrative too far. And even bigger color houses too. You've got people who've only done music videos and only done commercials, where the tonality that you choose on like a music video, you wouldn't really think about it, but it's radically different than what you might choose on a feature. And sometimes you can distract from the narrative by by making it all about the image, and you can really, or turn it into the wrong kind of movie by grading it to your own personal taste rather than paying attention to what the film is. And no amount of work as a DP can save you from that sometimes, where, unfortunately, especially if you are not in the supervised sessions, and you're, you get maybe 3 days with them or 5 days with them on a movie. If you only have a 5-day color, basically that's the typical number on like a pretty low features. You get 5 to 7 days. 5 days is enough time for them to put a look on the whole movie, and you to give notes on that and say like totally wrong direction or right direction. They'll do one round of notes, and whatever that next round of notes is, that's what you're doing as basically your final pass. Like, you can tweak it, you can power window, you can do a little bit, but like you have enough time to go through one round where you just say it's wrong or right. And if you haven't, if you don't have the right person on board and they don't get it right twice, that's a luckier movie. So you need someone very intuitive and that you trust, and who knows you and knows how you expose to like hopefully take it home the right way. And that's why I really appreciate Sam Gilling on this one. We actually hadn't worked together before, but I'd seen his work, and Anna and I had done a very intense color selection kind of process, because we had to submit certain people to the studio to approve. And so we had a list of great colorists, someone who'd colored like the original short, who I'd worked with a ton and I loved him as well. And it came down to who they approved versus, our top selection. It was a list of 20 that we trimmed down to 3 and we presented those 3 to them. And, you can always say who you're favoring or whatever, but we were very lucky that they listened to us and they took into consideration from those 3 who we all thought would work. And Sam is, from the beginning, he took the image in. Like, he's known for doing really excellent film emulation. Like, he's really good at it. And he even said, I'm not going to push this like I normally do on like a music video or commercial. I feel like it's not right. It'll be distracting. The story is a little more, I can't believe I'm going to say this. The story's a little more realistic, like in some ways. Like there's a lot of ridiculous shit in Appendage. It is a very silly movie. And it's a very heavy movie, and it is a very funny movie. And those 3 tones, very hard to navigate. And so getting a look that is not so pushed, it forces you into any of those realms was really important. And it was also, it was his choice to be like, hey, normally I know you'd want some grain. I'm not going to put any grain on this. I think we're going to do like maybe 10, 15% to help with like internet compression. And besides that, you won't even notice. And it's a very clean looking movie. And that's because just didn't fit the movie. The movie, the short film was a little campier, a little more retro feeling, a little sillier. And so we went for like a very pushed look, a lot of grain, a lot of retro shit. Feature, it had a very distinct horror and comedy approach. And if you went too horror and too too bleak, the funny wouldn't be funny. And if you went too like bright and punchy and clean and saturated, then the scary wouldn't be scary. And he was very on it, tracking where the lead character was feeling the whole time in a way that I think maybe a less tasteful colorist might not have interpreted the right way, and the movie wouldn't feel the way it does.
You even talking about that makes me imagine sort of a like a vector scope, and you got all the colors on the edges, and I can imagine those being genres. And if you push the vector scope in too many directions, now it's oversaturated. So if you're trying to hit multiple genres, the best way is to just rein it in, make it a little more neutral.
Yeah, well, the thing was, we lit with such a distinct color palette on set. We had a really clear, really clear color story for Hannah that he didn't need to introduce the colors in post. Like, the color was there. I'm not shy when I'm going to use a color. Like, I'm happy to go super gritty and super bleak and super cold and whatever. But if I'm going to use a color, like, I hate half-assed colors. And so I hate when it's like, it's almost purple, it's almost pink. It's like just, you're going to use it. Like, go for it. And make it mean something, make it happen, like, give it a reason why you're going for it. Even if it's just part of the world, like, I'm going to like the scene of the purple neon light because in my head, up in that skylight, there's a purple neon sign. And like in a sci-fi movie, that feels totally correct. There doesn't need to have an emotional reason all the time, but like this one did, just because of the complexity of the tone. There was a reason we used all these colors. And so Sam, when he got the footage in post, was like, it's already there. Like, you guys shot it the way it's supposed to be. I'm just going to, I think what he did was give it sort of, just help make it feel earnest, I guess. Like, the movie just feels very much like it's not trying to push too much on you in terms of the look. It sort of just is what it needs to be, scene by scene. A very, I would say, for the most part, not show-offy kind of thing. Like, there weren't a lot of like crazy light chases, and there weren't pulses, and there wasn't like shit going on everywhere that I was like, look at all the stuff I can do, which is often what music videos are. It's like, look at all the stuff I can do. And this had to be the opposite of that. This had to be like, look at all the stuff the actor can do. Like, look at all this stuff that the script is doing, and I'm just going to make it look like it's supposed to, in a way that you don't think about how the movie looks. Hopefully that's the goal.
Yeah. That you just made me remember, again, another thing I was going to ask earlier. We were talking about sticking to one ISO and shooting everything like that. Are you the kind of person who will white balance to whatever, or do you just 56-32 it and call it a day?
No, I have 3 that I like. I will do, I will also throw 4300 in there. Actually, it's a lie. And no, 4. And I'll use 3700. I don't just dial it like randomly, like 3742 for no reason. Like, it is, I choose the white balance strictly on like what I need. Usually stuff I'm working on. I don't like, especially narratively, don't always have the time to have every light be LED. Don't always have the time to control daylight to be exactly the daylight tone I need. I can't gel the windows. I can't do whatever. And so, if I need to do like a scene where I can't adjust all of my my tungsten warmer, and it's like a day for night scene or whatever, I'll just go to 5600 and shoot the bulbs at like 32, and it makes it as normal as I need it to. It's easy. Like I'll do that when I don't have for speed, but I don't like to just go so far off of like sort of established white balances where like you lose track of like, in the same way I like for contrast ratios. I think that's how I like for white. Like I use white balance. Yep. Like I know in my head what 500 will get me for contrast ratio. I know in my head what like 4300 will give me with daylight versus tungsten. I know like if I'm going to do moonlight at night, say you don't have the money for a condor, you can put a couple S360s in there and like actually color tone the moonlight. I know what 4300 from an HMI is going to give me. I know what 4300 with HMI with blue on it will give me. Like I can design it that way. It's sort of the cheat code for when you can't gel everything or put LEDs on everything.
The cheat code that so I'm the same way. It's like, 32, 43, 56, whatever, 65.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I've really come to enjoy is having a color meter. Because it's because I have one of those new ones too, where you can actually test the like spectral output of certain lights, which is also why I don't like sky panels, because they're actually the quality kind of sucks. The KinoFlow is actually number one. KinoFlow has the best spectral output of the LEDs, not the bulbs.
Yeah.
But like one little trick that has made every like corporate interview I've ever shot better is just getting the incoming window light, setting the camera to that, and setting the LED with the XY coordinates so that it matches exactly, not just the color temperature. Because you never know. That's what made me buy it initially, was like you get a sky panel, you put 5600 on the back. Is that
it's not 5600?
Yeah, no one knows. And so I was like, I just need to know. So you click it and you're like, oh, actually, that funny thing, sky panel is pretty good at being the color temperature that you put in the back.
Yeah,
surprisingly, but the output, the spectral output isn't great. But there's certain lights that are like 200, 500 Kelvin off, and it's like maybe you don't notice it, but I notice it.
Yeah, aperture lights, man. I'm not I can't get on board. I like Nanlux a lot. I love the Nanlux 1200. The Nanlux 1200, I get some real fucking mileage out of. But there's just, I feel like I just fight. I fight like the newer aperture stuff is getting better. But like when the 600 first came out, or like some of their panels, like you can't, unless you're hard lined in. I have so many issues with the iPad connecting to like the 600 panels. It'll flash when it loses connection. It'll just start doing its own thing. It doesn't just shut off like the Vortex. Some other lights learn to either hold their light, or they'll just go fully off. And the aperture will be like, fuck you, here's purple. And there's I'm just a Vortex fanboy. That's what it is. I'm really just a Dream Source and Nanlux fanboy, and I can't help it.
I'm 100% with you on that. I love the people that work at Aperture. I love them as like a company. I've never been as big of a fanboy of their product as other people.
Once you hardline it, really great. Like once you hardline their lights into an actual board, it works it's fine, no issues. But like I have a lot of, sometimes you can't, and I don't want to be shooting a narrative where I've got an aperture panel instead of a Vortex outside, and every 30 seconds it flashes purple because it loses signal to the iPad. Like I can't have that. I can't interrupt the performance like that.
Right.
They will use that take. That's inevitably
right.
Will happen. And I think it's important to safety your own work a little bit by getting the gear that works right.
Totally. We've got a little over, so I'll let you go here. But I did final question because I saw it. Another thing that apparently we came from the same parents that got separated. What in what ways being a drummer being like a DP?
You know what? You gave me an easy segue. It ties into exactly what I was saying about you got to just do what's right for the movie. I think drumming, if you make it too much about you, the song has no meaning. I think you're the backbone. You are what keeps everyone playing on time. And you can do a fill and have fun, and like you can show off a little bit. But if you lose track of what the song is, what it's about, what the dynamics are, I mean, tracking dynamics of a song is very similar to tracking dynamics of a scene. I think if you're not in tune with when things should amp up and like maybe go handheld versus being sticks, or like when the lighting should start to flash and strobe and do some crazy shit versus when it'll distract from a performance, it ties directly into playing drums. I mean, you've got to be the shadow at the back of the stage, and people are just like, oh yeah, the song works and the drumming, like the deal, like I could dance to it the whole time. Like I don't know why. It's because the fucking drummer played very basically and in time and to a great rhythm the whole time, and you didn't even think about it. You've got to be the invisible thing that makes everyone able to immerse. That's what it really is. I feel like some of my favorite DPs, you don't like. I feel like one of the reasons Roger Deakins went so long without an Oscar was because he is not flashy. He does exactly
He's a pocket drummer.
Yeah, Roger Deakins is the pocket drummer of cinematographers. Absolutely. Just does exactly what's necessary for the story and puts his own flavor on it. And that's why he's also the legend that he is. But like, never does anything out of pocket.
I was just thinking actors do guitar solos, not DPs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Drum solos, John Bonham and Sheila E. are the only two people I'm going to let do a drum solo because it's like part of the song.
John Bonham is the Robert Richardson of drums.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That dude
100%.
can throw a backlight fucking anywhere and I'm cool with it.
Yeah. Wow, they really picked the table to sit under that just has a fucking hole in the roof. That's interesting.
Equates to, Moby Dick, basically the song. That's basically the cinematic equivalent of like the drum solo of Moby Dick is where he chooses to put on like bounce lights and backlights. Yeah, absolutely.
Right on. Well, like I said, I'll let you go, but it's great talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by ProVideo Coalition. As this is an independently funded podcast, we rely on support from listeners like you. So if you'd like to help, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/frameandrefpod. We really appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for listening.